Welcome to Locked On Heat. The Heat just got their biggest win of the season. Has their season turned around? Why one Heat player thinks that the Heat finally found the blueprint.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. And thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network now the #1 sports podcast network. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. Going solo here today on a Sunday morning after the Heat's win over the Thunder. The Heat have quietly racked up some really good wins this season. The Thunder on Saturday night last night, they beat the Nuggets. I know without Nikola Jokic, but given the way that the Nuggets have played without Joker recently, that's still a quality win. And then they beat the Pistons earlier this year. This is a team that, even in some of these losses, have gotten up for some of the better teams in the league. Heck, that Suns win a couple nights ago, that's a good win. The Phoenix Suns are a good team. So we got a bunch to get to today. I got another batch of credit cookies to hand out in the second segment. And then in the third segment, we're going to answer some listener questions, including one about whether or not it's time to trade Tyler Herro. Yep, we're going to go back to that with some of the latest information on that. But look, the Heat go 2-1 on this homestand. Phoenix, Boston, OKC. They win against Phoenix. They win against OKC. Look, I thought they played really well against the Boston Celtics. Outside of that fourth quarter, I thought they played well enough to win. And if Anthony Simons doesn't just erupt in that fourth quarter, they're probably 3-0 for this homestand. Take out a quarter against the Suns, take out a quarter against the Celtics. It's hard to nitpick this Miami Heat team. Kel'el Ware, it wasn't his best few games, right? Like, we could start getting into some of the players and stuff. But Bam has fully come around and shot himself out of this shooting slump. His game against the Thunder last night, I mean, as much as you could go toe-to-toe with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Bam did, right? 30 points on 9 of 22 shots. I love that he took 22 shots. I don't care that he only shot 41%. When was the last time we see, like, Bam doesn't take 22 shots. That is not a thing that he does. But he takes 22 shots. 10 of them are three-pointers. He goes 6 of 10 from three-point range, adds 12 rebounds, 4 assists. This was a tremendous two-way game for him. After that Suns game, I called that a two-way masterpiece. This was also a bit of a masterpiece. You would have liked it to be a little bit more efficient, but you know, the shot plot isn't exactly what you want from Bam on any given night, right? Like, do you really want him taking 10 threes every game? No, you don't. But sometimes you need it. And on a night where Tyler Herro was hurt, Jaime Jaquez Jr. was hurt, Davion Mitchell was hurt, at some point you just take it wherever you can get it. And if Bam is feeling it from three-point range, then dude, let it rip. Go ahead. And he definitely was feeling it in this game. 10 points in the fourth quarter to help pull away from the Thunder at the very end. Just great play after great play. And it wasn't just the points, it was the defense that he was providing, making key rotations, especially again late in this game. The facilitating was there. His screen game has been folded back into this offense, which I think is a really underestimated part of Bam's game and why he's starting to play a little bit better, because he's starting to get into those spots a little bit more. But really what stands out to Bam about Bam recently to me is the confidence that he's playing with. There's no hesitation on the shot. Like I said, I'm sure the coaching staff doesn't even want him taking 10 three-pointers ideally every single night. But Bam has to care less about that kind of thing sometimes. About, okay, am I playing the right role? Am I taking the right shots in the offense? On a night like this where you're playing against a bona fide bucket getter like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you just take the shot, dude. And Bam, not only against the Thunder, but during this homestand, has been a lot more decisive offensively. He's not only with the three-point shot, which he's just letting it fly now, and he works on that shot, and I think it's a good shot. He's not an elite three-point shooter. He's not even the best three-point shooter at the center position, but he's not bad, right? Like, and every once in a while he has a night like this. Like, for Bam, it kind of comes in bunches. The three-point shot does, where if he's feeling it, he's just sort of feeling it. And if he's not, he's not, right? Like, he could go 6 for 10 just as easily as he can go 1 for 4. And tonight, obviously, it was a good night, or last night, it was a good night for him. But when he's playing with that level of confidence, he's also getting to the rim a lot more. He's getting into that spin hook. He's getting into that free throw line jumper. He needs to be aggressive with his shot, right? It can't always be about what's right for the offense or what's right for my teammates. The Heat, as much as they'll tell you, what Bam does for us is the leadership and it's a defense, and those things are all certainly true. But you need production. At the end of the day, points really matter. And for Bam, it looks like he's fully shot his way out of that shooting slump. So he was a big part of why the Heat won last night, but he wasn't the only part about why the Heat won last night. I mean, you go across the board. Pelle Larsson, huge game. Norm Powell, really big buckets when it mattered. Kasparas Jakubonis stepping in. It wasn't the most productive night. He fouls out with like a minute and a half left, but stepping in as the starting point guard against that Oklahoma City Thunder team. And in that instance, your job is to not turn the ball over. And with Kaz, the big knock on him coming out of college was, is he going to be able to handle ball pressure? Is he going to be able to get by NBA-level defenders? And against this buzzsaw of a Thunder defense, I was a little worried. I was like, this could just be a situation where Lou Dort and Kaysen Wallace and Alex Caruso are just swarming Kaz at half court, and they're just taking the ball away from him. That was not the case. Kaz, 0 turnovers. I don't care that he went 1 for 7 shooting. I don't care that he fouled out. The fact that he had 0 turnovers, he did his job. So tremendous game from him. We'll hand out more credit cookies later, but I want to get to a little bit of, to me, the other headline from this game. Not just that Bam has shot his way out of that shooting slump and is playing some of the best basketball of his season, but this is starting to feel like something potentially is turning for the Heat. And Heat players and coaches talked about this after the game on Saturday night. Norm Powell was talking about it specifically and said something to the effect of, the Heat have found a blueprint here at the midway point of the season. Let's go ahead and play that sound.
The stat that Coach showed you guys before the game.
That's between us. That's a internal something that we want to reach for, and I think we can do. I think the thing about this team, we can beat anybody and we can lose to anybody. And it's all about our mentality and our approach and being collective. And everybody bought in, whether you're getting the minutes or not, whether it's your night, whether you're getting the shots or not. We got to be a team that's collectively making plays to help win us the game. Some nights it's not going to be yours, and some nights it is. But as long as we're pulling in the right direction, pouring encouragement and confidence into everybody that's coming in the game, and everybody's making winning plays and sacrifice plays, that's what it's about. And I think we found the blueprint, and we know the blueprint, and it's on us to sustain it.
What's the goal? What's the stat?
So the blueprint there, right? That's what Norm Powell is talking about. And he's playing a little coy, right? Anthony Chang from the Miami Herald asking him, hey, what was that stat that you guys were talking about? So right before that clip, the rest of that quote from Norm was, Coach showed us a stat from last season, and it really kind of gave us a hint as to what it is that we need to do specifically to win games. And then Anthony asked, what was that stat? And then Norm gives the answer that you just heard about that blueprint. So, I did some digging. I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, what is it? What's the stat? What's the stat that Spo shared before the game? That resonated obviously with this Heat team. And I think there's a couple of things. I do think that the assist number is important for this team. The way that this offense runs, the egalitarian style of it, they had 30 assists on 41 made field goals in last night's game. That's great, right? And when you hear Norm talk about, it doesn't matter who's taking the most shots, it doesn't matter all that kind of stuff, that makes me think, okay, maybe it's the sharing the ball thing. But then again, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That assist number doesn't typically, it doesn't always lead to wins, right? You look historically at not just Heat data, but NBA data. That stuff is good. Assist to turnover ratio is a little bit better in terms of a factor in wins and losses. But, if you have a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for instance, then maybe you don't need as many assists, right? Maybe you just have a guy who can kind of just do it offensively, just take care of things. So I was like, yeah, maybe it's the assist number, maybe not. And the other part about this game that really stood out to me, other than the 30 assists on the 41 made field goals, the Heat got 34 more field goal attempts than the Thunder in this game. That's a wild number. It's a number that blew Erik Spoelstra's mind after the game. 34 more field goal attempts. Miami took 111 shots in that game. The Thunder took 77. And before, I know you're thinking, before you've all free throw attempts, right? Like the Thunder just got to the line a bunch of times, and those field goal attempts don't account for the free throw attempts. Yeah, you're right. Both teams took 28 free throw attempts, even. So that wasn't it either. 21 offensive rebounds for the Miami Heat. A lot of second chance point opportunities. And maybe more importantly, just 4 turnovers against a Thunder team whose whole thing is turning you over. 4 turnovers compared to 14 for the Thunder. That to me is what stands out. It's the possession battle. And today's NBA is all about the possession battle. You want to do the math thing, right? If you want to kind of, 10 years ago, it was all about three-point shooting. We got to take more threes. Threes are worth more than twos. We got to maximize our three-point attempts. Morey Ball, Steph Curry, James Harden, all that kind of stuff. That was what was in vogue. That was the statistical trend that took over the NBA about 10 years ago. What is that trend now? It's all about the possession battle. And I asked Erik Spoelstra about this before the Celtics game, I think it was. The possession battle being more important now than it's ever been. There's more emphasis on the possession battle than there's ever been. And I asked him specifically about when he started to see that kind of turn and what kind of trends he's seeing around the league. And he said the same thing that I've basically been saying and thinking for about a year now is, as opposed to the three-point small ball revolution where everybody was just going small and getting up as many threes as possible and putting as many three-point shooters on the floor as possible, now it's a little bit more tailored to your roster, and you got to look at ways where you can win the possession battle. And wherever you have an edge, you need to push that edge as much as you possibly can in order to win that possession battle. So for a team like the Thunder, who have all these great ball hawk type of guards, the way they can win the possession battle is by taking away the ball from you before you can even get a field goal attempt up. That's what they do. For the Heat, they don't really have that anymore. What they really do at a high level, though, potentially is offensive rebound and limit fouls. And on a good night, limit turnovers. And in that way, they can start winning the possession battle. And what the Heat have done, even though they don't have like a Steven Adams, Andre Drummond type of offensive rebounder on their roster, what they have done historically under Erik Spoelstra is gang rebound at a really high rate. Typically, we see this with their defensive rebounding rate. They don't have one player that's just going to lead the league in rebounding, but as a team, they do a really good job boxing out, a really good job team rebounding, gang rebounding, and they always rank in the top 5-10 in the league in defensive rebounding rate. Offensive rebounding rate, they're usually in the middle or the bottom. But to find this blueprint that Norm was hinting at, I think we got to look at that offensive rebounding number. We're going to talk about that, plus hand out the credit cookies that are currently baking in the oven. We'll do that next here on Locked On Heat. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing's perfect, right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen of the day. Thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Heat with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonheat.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Before we get to our credit cookies, the blueprint that Norm was talking about there. I think it comes down to offensive rebounding. When the Heat are offensive rebounding at a really high level, they win a lot of games. Norm mentioned that it was a stat that dated back even to last season for them. So I went back. I looked at last year. The Heat are 11-2. Were 11-2 last season when they had an offensive rebounding rate of 30% or more. In other words, when they grabbed 30% of available offensive rebounds. And I like to look at the offensive rebounding rate as opposed to just the raw offensive rebounding numbers, because the raw number has more to do with how many shots the opponent missed. Too much noise in that, right? Like if the opponent missed a bunch of shots, then your offensive rebounding number is going to go way higher, right? Because there's just going to be, or I'm sorry, if you missed a bunch of shots, your offensive rebounding rate is going to go a lot higher. So you might say, oh, well, they got a lot of offensive rebounds. They played really well. No, they just missed a bunch of shots, right? So I like to look at the rate, the percentage of the available offensive rebounds that you grab. That is a much more useful stat in terms of rebounding. I think defensive rebounding too. It's the same thing. But in terms of offensive rebounding, when Miami grabbed at least 30% of the available offensive rebounds off their own misses, they were 11-2 last season. I expanded that to 25%. Okay, in games where they grabbed 25% of their offensive rebounds, they were 18-8. So you could see a direct sort of correlation to success, right? 25% of offensive rebounds, they were 18-8. They won 18 of those 26 games that qualified for that. When they offensive rebounded at a higher rate, they won even more, right? They won at a higher rate, 11-2. They won 11 of the 13 games that qualified at 30% plus. So I'm like, okay, that's an interesting stat. So I looked at it for this year. What do you know? Same thing. In games this year, in the 21 games that they offensive rebounded 25% of their own misses this season, they're 14-7. They've won 14 of those 21 games. That's great. What about 30% plus? 7-1. That includes last night's game where Miami rebounded 33.9% of their misses against the Thunder. I don't know for sure that this is the stat that Erik Spoelstra shared with the team, but the correlation over a 2-year sample, a 1.5-year sample, and we're at the halfway point of this season, that's pretty stark. And I look at the thing that changed in this game, the thing that really stood out in this game that was different than the other games, recently. It was the offensive rebounds. 21 offensive rebounds in this game. 5 for the Thunder. And that equates to the possession battle. And why is that specifically important for this Heat team? Because they don't have a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, this crazy efficient scoring monster on their team. They don't have that player. It's why I'm okay with Bam taking 22 shots. Because if you're offensive rebounding a few of those misses, then that's okay with me. It's volume. The Heat are going to be very good defensively every possession. Offensively, it's a lot more up and down. For the Heat to have success on offense, it's a volume game for them. And that's why the pace matters, and that's why the possession battle matters. And if you can get opportunities at second chance points on offensive rebounds, that really matters too. And we've seen how that results in winning more often than not. All right, it's time for the tastiest segment of Locked On Heat. It's time to get in the kitchen and hand out some credit cookies. As always, we have 10 cookies to hand out. A big game for Bam Adebayo. We're going to start right off the bat with him. He's going to get 4 of our 10 credit cookies here. I talked about Bam in the first segment. Just a tremendous game from him. I mean, the production, the 30 points was great, but the fourth quarter, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Just a huge fourth quarter for Bam. Not his first huge fourth quarter in this homestand, right? We remember what he did against the Phoenix Suns a few nights ago. If he's doing that, that's what you need your best player to do. You need him to be productive, and you need him to be your closer. And Bam was their closer tonight on both ends. It was, again, a masterpiece, two-way masterpiece for Bam, especially in that fourth quarter in this game. So 4 credit cookies to Bam Adebayo. We're going to give 2 credit cookies to Norm Powell. Not the most efficient night for him, but if I'm not going to dock Bam, I feel bad. I can't really dock Powell. 19 points on 5 of 15 shooting, 5 of 12 from three-point range. All of his makes were from beyond the arc in this game, including some really big shots down the stretch. But really why I'm giving Powell some credit cookies here, not just the volume. Somebody has to take those shots and somebody has to score some points. He made the biggest pass of the game. Final play, the Heat need a bucket to win the game. And Erik Spoelstra draws up a pick and roll, which we can have a whole other kind of conversation about that, but we're running out of time. But the fact that Spo drew up a pick and roll with Bam screening for Powell, a high pick and roll at the end of the game when you needed a bucket, that to me is the way that this offense works. You could do the motion wheel offense, the up-tempo stuff for most of the game. You can do that 80% of the game. But at the end of the day, when it really matters, you're going to have to get the ball to your best ball handler and run a pick and roll and let your player make a decision out of that pick and roll. And what Powell did was, on that final play, perfect. He made the perfect decision. First, he rejects the screen, which created a little bit of extra space for him to drive to the lane. He drives to the lane and kicks out to Andrew Wiggins in the corner for the game-winning three-pointer. So that was a huge bucket there. What I loved from Norm on that play, not just the rejecting the screen, but when you watch it again, look how wide look at the wide path he takes towards the rim. What that does is it draws the help defense even further away from Andrew Wiggins. So that when Powell delivers that pass, and it was a perfect pass, because he goes so wide on that drive to the basket, it's that much harder for Oklahoma City to close out on Andrew Wiggins. And they closed out hard. I thought it was a good closeout for the Thunder, given the circumstances. Credit to Wiggs for draining the three. Wiggs gets one credit cookie for hitting that game-winning three-pointer. Also, his defense on SGA I thought was really big. Nobody really could stop SGA, but there's no stopping SGA. You just try to make it difficult for him every once in a while. I thought Wiggins did a solid job. But the offensive rebounds for him, too. 3 offensive rebounds in this game. I'll say it before, and I will say it again. To me, for Wiggs, it's less about the production, 15 points on 15 shots tonight. It's less about the points. It's less about the scoring for me. It's more about how he plays with physicality on a night-to-night basis. When he is playing physically on both ends, and when he's offensive rebounding, that's when Wiggs goes up a net level. That's when he raises the floor and the ceiling for this Heat team, and that's what he was doing in that game. We got to shout out Myron Gardner, man. He got the shout out from the coaching staff after the game. Game ball from Myron Gardner. Credit cookie for Myron Gardner. He gets one. 11 points, 5 rebounds, made big shots in that second quarter from Myron Gardner. He was, 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 in the second quarter. He was 4 for 4 for the night. So he goes 3 for 3 in that second quarter. Big bucket after big bucket. The three look great. I love the energy that he plays with. I really like this guy. Every time he's on the court, it just feels like something good happens. He might be the next diamond in the rough find for the Heat. So he gets one credit cookie. And then for the last two, I'm giving both of them to Pelle Larsson. 16 points on 7 of 15 shooting. Despite the fact that he goes 0 for 3 from three-point range, that means he goes 7 of 12 from two-point range. I loved his game. 3 rebounds, 2 assists. He had a steal, got hit in the face within the first 2 minutes of the game. The physicality that Pelle Larsson plays with, the energy, the intensity that he plays with, and just understanding what his role is. He knows what the plot of the game is. Nobody is as dedicated to the motion offense than Pelle Larsson. He is executing the new offense on every single offensive possession. I think that means a lot for this Miami Heat team. He's got this ability to connect and be a glue guy in that starting lineup. It's not a coincidence, I don't think, that the starting lineup just tends to click, and Miami's record is good when Pelle Larsson is a starter. This guy is good. And when that three-point shot eventually comes around, look out, because that's a high-level rotation player. But he had a great game in this one. 8 of his 16 points came in the fourth quarter. He was Bam's wingman in that fourth quarter. Consistently putting pressure on that basket, had that huge dunk in the fourth quarter. His cutting, he might be the best cutter on the team right now, point blank. He's awesome. Shout out to Yakuchonis that I shouted him out in the first segment. And then a shout out to Simone Fontecchio. 4 of 7 overall, 2 of 4 from three-point range for 13 points off the bench. First guy off the bench, kind of playing the Jaime role when they didn't really have anybody else. They needed him to be productive, and he was in this one. And then it wasn't a good game for Kel'el Ware. 7 points. He was a -9 overall, 3 of 11 shooting. But look, he did have 9 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds. And after Erik Spoelstra called him out after that Boston Celtics game, I do like the way that he responded with his overall disposition. So not enough for a credit cookie, but enough for a little bit of a shout out there. Coming up, the Heat got a big win without Tyler Herro again. And some are wondering if it's a sign that the Heat need to move on and trade Tyler Herro before the deadline. We'll talk about that next. Today's episode of Locked On and Locked On Heat is brought to you by Game Time. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, the big first run that gets everybody on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. Seeing the view from your seat before buying makes choosing tickets easy, and you can do it with confidence. Prices include fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. And with features like zone deals, they help unlock great seats at even better value. Whether it's an NBA game or another live event, everything is right there in one place with Game Time. So, take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Let's go to the text line. You can get text from us and submit questions for the post-game show with the link in the show notes, or text 786-998-7029. Cody writes in, is it safe to say that Bam is fully back and that was just a slump? I think it's fair to say that he's out of the slump. Now, the thing with Bam is the level of aggressiveness from him offensively does wax and wane. We've seen it for years, and to expect it to change at this point, I think, is hopeless. There's going to be nights where Bam is really aggressive. There's going to be nights where he just isn't. Okay? And we're going to have to live with that. But in terms of the slumping part, I like two things that we're seeing recently with Bam. What I said in the first segment. Decisiveness, confidence. Shoot it with confidence, let it fly. Not every shot has to be a great shot. And I think Norm Powell was talking about this after the game. Not every shot has to be perfect. Not every shot has to go in, but when you're open, let it fly. And with Bam, you're starting to see that more, right? He's starting to just care less a little bit, right? Less inhibition when it comes to shooting it, and I think he needs to do that. When you're open, when you're a little bit open, you got to shoot that ball. That's how this offense works, right? We talked about the volume-based game. That's how this works. Volume, early in the shot clock, get that shot up, play great defense. That's the formula for Bam. Also, he's not going to be as bad as he was during that slump. Everybody, look at this. One of my rules is when given a large sample and a small sample, go with the large sample. And during that small sample of 10-plus-ish games where Bam was in that shooting slump and his shooting percentages were as low as they've ever been from everywhere on the court, just ask yourself, do you think that Bam is more represented by the small sample or the larger sample of his career? In other words, do you think that Bam suddenly got his powers zapped away Space Jam style? Or do you think that it's just a shooting slump? And when you look at it that way, you kind of expected it to just kind of come around at some point. So, yeah, I think that Bam is shot out of the slump. It's not to say that he won't slump again. Everybody goes through it. The aggression comes and goes. But I do think the worst of it is behind us for Bam Adebayo. Jonah writes in, big win. Is Spo right about Kel'el Ware? I feel like we need to move him before he's gone, like Malik Beasley's value. Michael Beasley. He meant Michael Beasley. So I just thought he followed this up with a Michael Beasley, not Malik Beasley. That makes more sense. So Michael Beasley was strange. I don't know that Michael Beasley's value was gone when the Heat moved on before the 2010 season. It wasn't what it was when he was a rookie, but it was so early in his career that it felt like, another good season, his value could just go back up. And that Heat year before LeBron got here was so weird that like Dwayne Wade was the only guy that played well. I don't know that you need to move Kel'el now. I will stress this, right? Same with Bam. You're never as bad as your worst moments. You're never as good as your best moments. For Kel'el, the talent is there. It's too enticing to just give up on. So if the question here is trade Ware now and just to get whatever, just open up basically the phone lines and start shopping them and take the best offer. I'm not sure if that's what Jonah means by this question, but if that is, I don't think you do that. You want to operate from a position of strength when Kel'el's, if you're going to trade him, you want to operate from a position of strength. The other thing is he's in his second year and development is not linear. And you hear Erik Spoelstra say that all the time. You hear a lot of coaches say that all the time. That's not just coach speak. It is, but it's not just, it doesn't mean it's untrue. Development is not linear. And for Kel'el, and this is the thing that Spo keeps kind of reminding himself of, is when he thinks about where Kel'el was this time last season, it's night and day different. So you almost have to zoom out, because when you kind of get, you miss the forest for the trees when you kind of just go on a game-to-game basis with Kel'el. When you zoom out on him, he's a completely different player than he was when he entered the league, in a good way, right? Like, he is figuring it out. So I don't know that we got to go down that right. In terms of, is Spo right about Ware? It depends on what you mean. Is he right to coach Kel'el Ware hard? I've argued yes. I think I probably wouldn't have phrased certain things the same way Spo phrased them. I probably wouldn't have said some of the things that Spo, but the results have been there a handful of times now that when Erik Spoelstra calls out Kel'el Ware publicly, Ware does tend to respond in a positive way. So far, I don't know. Wasn't his best game against the Thunder, but I do think that he'll start playing better going forward. Malachi writes in, is Pelle Larsson the most underrated and underappreciated player on the Miami Heat? I watched the game against the Thunder, and that was mostly won thanks to Pelle. I don't know if mostly won. He only got 2 credit cookies compared to 4 for Bam and 2 for Powell. But He was great in that game. Maybe I didn't give him enough credit cookies. I think that's fair. We only have 10 to give out. So, if you think I didn't give him enough, sorry, there's only 10 credit cookies to give out. But he was tremendous. And the thing about Pelle is his ability to just fit in with any lineup is so valuable to this Heat team, particularly during this season when they've had so many guys in and out because of injuries, especially at that spot, like along the perimeter. It's been really tough to get anything consistent. And Pelle, no matter what, whether he's starting, playing 30 minutes, or coming off the bench and playing 15, he plays hard every single minute he's on the court. And what really impresses me about it is the games where he plays 15 minutes, you might say, well, it's 15 minutes, short burst, just go out there, play as hard as you can, then get off. And he does. But that ability to play hard and be that glue guy connecting piece, it scales up when he has more minutes. In other words, that stuff doesn't go away. Like the energy level doesn't dip, even if he's playing twice as many minutes. It's always there for Pelle. And he might be the best conditioned athlete on the team outside of Bam. And you know what that means to a Heat organization that values that very highly. Ayad writes in, is it time to trade Tyler Herro? Is there a team out there that could want him and give us draft picks? Sacramento, Washington, Brooklyn. Is it time to trade Tyler Herro? This is a question that I've seen all around social media. I think Ira answered it maybe in a mailbag recently also. Look, on one hand, it's been a rough year for Tyler Herro, right? The injuries are on and off. Obviously, he missed a bunch of time after the offseason ankle surgery, foot surgery, and now it's a toe, and now it's a back injury or whatever the other one is. He's dealing with all these injuries now. And that's frustrating. When he's on the court, he's been very productive for the most part. He does have the worst plus minus of any regular rotation player this season. But the sample isn't very big, 349 minutes. And going back to small sample versus big samples, Herro's plus minus is usually in the positive. So I'm not too worried about it. And I think a lot of it just has to do with him working his way back and not fully being him yet. But defensively, he's also, it's been an issue with him on the court. And that's been the same, that's never really changed for him in his season, in his career. Is it time to trade Tyler Herro? I don't know that I would go that far. And label me an apologist, whatever you want to do. Just think about this from a front office perspective. Why would now be the time to trade Tyler Herro? Like, why now? I can't really find a reason. Unless a team like Sacramento, Washington, Brooklyn, one of these teams comes to you and say, hey, we'll give you 3 or 4 first-round picks for Tyler Herro, then you're just like, okay, well, I guess we have to do this. But I wouldn't be shopping him right now. Again, his value is as low as that you want to be operating from a position of strength. Wait until he gets healthy. If you're going to trade him when his value is higher and you can operate with some leverage. You don't trade him now. And by the way, Tyler Herro is a good basketball player. I'm not just trading him just to trade him. Is it the best fit with him and Powell? Is it the best fit with Herro and this roster? No, maybe not. We can argue it if you want. It doesn't mean you just trade him. It doesn't mean you just give up on an asset or on a player with upside who was an all-star last year and has nights where he looks like a bona fide 3-level scorer. You don't just give up on that. So that's one reason why I don't think you trade him now. The other reason is I still think Tyler Herro might be the most important part of a Giannis trade. And if you're trading Herro for draft picks that can go help you get Giannis, that's a different story. But I'm not trading Herro just to trade him because I'm going to need his salary and his upside in a potential Giannis trade. And no matter what I do, Tyler Herro related, John Morant related, whatever related, between now and the deadline, if I'm the Heat, I'm thinking about Giannis first and foremost. And anything that I do, any move that I make, the first question I have to ask is this going to hurt my chances to go get Giannis? Or is it going to help my chances to go get Giannis? Or is it going to not affect my chances to go get Giannis? And if the answer is it's going to hurt my chances of getting Giannis, then I don't do the thing. I don't do whatever it is that's in front of me. I don't do it. You can't. Because it's never been more clear that, not more clear, but more people in the league believe than not that Giannis will be playing for a different team next season. It might not happen before the trade deadline. It probably doesn't. If you poll most people around the league, they think that he's probably on the Bucks roster after the trade deadline, though that can change at any moment in the NBA, as we've seen. But as of now, most people think that it'll be something that happens in the summer. Giannis will decline to sign an extension and basically force the Bucks to trade him. And then when that happens, if you're the Heat, you better have stuff that positions you to go get Giannis. And that means draft picks, yes, but also salaries to get up to that Giannis number. And Rozier's expiring contract will be off the books. You're not going to be able to use that. Wiggs, we don't know. He's got a player option. Does he opt in? If so, then he's tradable. If not, then you have to extend and trade him, and that gets a little bit more complicated. You need salaries to get up there. And Tyler Herro's salary could be very important, probably will be very important in any potential Giannis trade. So that's the other reason why I'm not saying just trade Tyler right now. Even if you think this team is better off without him, even if you don't love the fit right now, you got to think bigger picture on this stuff. And that's what I think the Heat's front office is doing. Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Heat. Make sure you subscribe, follow Locked On Heat so you get all the latest episodes. We'll be back on the Heat play Monday night against the Golden State Warriors. We'll be back Tuesday morning with an episode. Maybe a fun little announcement to go along with it. Stay tuned.